Hi everyone, big warm welcomes to you all. That kind of goes without saying, but I'm still saying it because it's nice to be welcomed, yeah? It's not like I've just opened the door to let you in and then turned my back on you and walked off, leaving you to find the light switch. And I guess I don't need to say, welcome to the Self-Detective Club, but you never know. Someone might have wanted to listen to the Self-Defective Club instead. So it's good to be clear about these things to avoid any unnecessary misunderstandings. This is our fourth wellness calendar foray, and we're celebrating the month of April with 30 snippets around the theme of relationships. And speaking of which, thank you as ever for your comments and suggestions and feedback. Please do keep them coming in. Why? Because it takes two to tango. Because we value your insights. Because we want you to keep this ship steady. podcast@selfdetective.net. Can you repeat that, please, Simon? Yes, of course. It's podcast@selfdetective.net with a T and not an F. Right, here we go. 1st of April, I need a connection. So relationships can be the most amazingly wonderful thing, but they can also be a nightmare and all things in between. And while it may be an obvious thing to say, isn't just about everything we do based around relationships in some way or other? Whether it's with another person, ourselves, an object or a location, say. Aren't relationships the source of 99.9% of all of our happiness and 99.9% of all of our distress? We cannot be ourselves without other people. Others help to define who we are by the very fact that they're around us. We depend on other people to bring us up when we are small, to keep us safe, and provide us with things. There's also a wealth of evidence showing the importance of good bonds with our parents, carers at an early age, and how we will struggle to reach out to other people in later life without that solid foundation. I am because you are is a quote that comes from a South African philosophy called Ubuntu, meaning the universal bond of sharing that connects all of humanity. How might you describe your connections, your connectivity? Does it come naturally to you, or is it something that you need to work on? The 2nd of April, a strange situation. In psychological terms, to have an attachment to someone means having a long-lasting emotional bond with them. Other words linked with attachment are affection, closeness, devotion, loyalty, love, intimacy. By researching this area, psychoanalysts Mary Ainsworth and John Bowlby came up with a notion that every child needs to have an attachment with someone in order to grow, develop, and thrive. And unfortunately, not every child gets this opportunity. A series of experiments called Strange Situation took place in the 1970s, wherein a child and their parent or caregiver entered a room containing toys. A stranger then walked into the room and attempted to engage with the child while the parent carer left the room before they returned after a short spell. In recording the responses of the many children who participated in the experiment, 3 to 4 different types of attachments were noted. The first one, a child with secure attachments happily played with the toys with the parent present and was also happy to engage with the stranger. However, when the parent left, the child would become upset until they were reunited, when they then calmed and was able to continue their play. Number 2, insecure attachments. These were discovered when a child ignored the parent while they were together in the room and was seemingly unconcerned when the parent left the room. The child then ignored them again when they returned. It didn't matter if there was someone in the room or if the room was empty. There was no sign of any emotional response from the child. And this suggested that there were no firm bonds that had developed in their life to date. Measuring the heart rate of these children led the researchers to find that while they were giving the appearance of being unconcerned by what was happening, the children were in fact anxious and in distress. And the third one, ambivalent attachment. This was found when a child was clearly distressed when their parent left the room. They avoided the stranger and did not play with the toys. When the departed parent returned, the child was conflicted in some way. Like they wanted to reach out to their parent, but at the same time, they were angry with them. A fourth classification was later added, known as disorganized attachment. This was seen in children who for brief moments appeared tense, fearful, jerky, frozen, disjointed, and at odds with themselves, like they didn't know what to do next, like they didn't know how to play. This was seen as an indication of neglect, abuse, or trauma. Would it be a useful exercise to map out the attachment types of yourself and all the significant people in your life? The 3rd of April, the power of vulnerability. If you want a meaningful relationship with someone, you have to step forward out of your comfort zone into a place that makes you exposed and vulnerable. The same goes for the person you are engaging with. What do you make of this idea? Does it ring true for you? Brené Brown, a writer and research professor known for her challenging notes on the subject of relationships, adds her own thoughts. She says, "Through my research, I found that vulnerability is the glue that holds relationships together. It's the magic source. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy, the experiences that make us the most vulnerable." If you are already too exposed to be vulnerable, where might this leave you? Do you think you could make tiny steps, tiny inroads into relationships? Or does it have to be all or nothing? The 4th of April, I, it versus I, thou. In an attempt to make sense of our relationships, 18th century philosopher Martin Buber split our experiences with others into two camps. He called them I-it and I-thou. In an I-it relationship, there's a distance between two people. They are separate from one another. In an I-it relationship, there's little engagement between the two parties and little investment of energy into each other. Neither side wishes to reveal much of themselves, so there is little to bond them together. An I-it relationship can be a merely functional, transactional meeting based on money, based on a need or a duty. An I-it relationship can come about when one or both parties sees the other as nothing more than an object. An I-it relationship has no channels in which the parties can come together. They were either blocked or they were never open in the first place. Unsurprisingly, an I-it relationship is absolutely meaningless. It barely even qualifies as a relationship. It's largely about people sharing the same space and little else. Whereas, in an I-thou relationship, there's a proper connection between the parties where the two people engage with and truly encounter one another. An I-thou relationship contains meaning and meaningfulness. There's openness, there's trust. In an I-thou relationship, you can be authentic, as there's no need to pretend. Would it be useful to go through the relationships in your life and see how many of them are I-it and how many of them are I-thou? And if you're not happy with the balance of I-it and I-thou, could you strive to improve the relationships that you have, or find new people with whom you can form stronger connections with? Martin Buber believed that most societies are set up as I-it, and that the disconnection between institutions and citizens has an alienating effect on individuals. I wonder what you think about that. The 5th of April, strokes. If you don't get enough positive attention from other people, compliments say, you may strive for a negative reaction, such as getting told off. The idea is that any kind of connection with someone is better than being ignored or left out. In 1935, psychoanalyst René Spitz undertook research into child development in institutions such as orphanages, prisons, and hospitals. He found that infants who were deprived of touch, love, and intimacy went into rapid decline. He called this emotional deprivation. Meanwhile, psychiatrist Eric Berne saw similar things going on with adults who endure a lack of physical intimacy. He called this need for physical intimacy strokes. In its most basic form, a stroke could be a mere acknowledgement of our presence, that we exist in the world, or it could mean a literal stroking of the head or the hand. Are you getting enough positive strokes? If not, can you seek them out within your community? The 6th of April, Harlow's monkey experiment. In 1958, Harry Harlow undertook experiments on baby monkeys who were taken away from their mothers at a very early age. He replaced the mothers with mock-ups made of wire and wood. He gave each baby monkey a choice between a surrogate mother dressed in cloth and a bare wire mother with a bottle of milk. The baby monkeys chose the warmth and intimacy of the clothed surrogate mother over and above the milk. Now, this revelation directly challenged Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of need model, as it placed a greater value on the need for love rather than the need for food. And by love, we mean the full array of love: the tenderness, the warmth, the care, the concern, the kindness, the bonds, and the attachments. So, if love is one of the most important aspects of a primate's life, what happens when we don't get it? Or we don't get enough of it? Or we don't ask for it for fear of being rejected or humiliated? 7th of April, love, love, and more love. There are so many different types of love and so many definitions that it can be hard to know just what people mean when they say the L word. The writer Susan Sontag said that no human relations are a mystery except love. Does she have a point? Should we leave love alone and simply enjoy its mysteriousness? Here are some love definitions that may help us or confuse us, as the case may be. An intense feeling of deep affection. Warm attachment. A strong feeling of desire. Unconditional acceptance and positive regard. Some say love is a basic need of all humans. Just as we can be hungry for food and thirsty for water, so can we be hungry/thirsty for love. Others point out that love is biological, social, psychological, and emotional, all at the same time. That's a whole lot of love. Emotionally, where does love start and end? Is it on a spectrum or a continuum? If so, what is above and below love? And where do attraction and lust feature? Is fear the opposite of love? Or is hate? Or something else? Would it be useful if we mapped out our own notions and experiences of love using metaphors or equations, Venn diagrams, or a landscape such as an island? Can we have love without anyone else? And then again, how would we know how to love oneself if it wasn't from understanding how others gave and received love to us? Quote, "It hurts to love. It's like giving yourself to be flayed and know that at any moment the other person may just walk off with your skin." End quote. Susan Sontag. Quote, "Love is not something we give or get. It is something that we nurture and grow. A connection that can only be cultivated between two people when it exists within each one of them. We can only love others as much as we love ourselves. End quote. Brené Brown. But again, more importantly, what do you mean when you say the word love? How many different types of love can you think of? What do you think is the difference between love, being in love, or falling in love? Is love the driving force behind us forming relationships? How do we know when the loving has stopped? Is there such a thing as unconditional love? How passive or active would you say you are around love? Like, does love simply plop on your lap? Or do you have to work for it? 8th of April. Substitutes for love. If you're unable to get the relationships that you want or need, you're likely to try and make up for that lack by seeking a substitute. For some people, the substitute can work out fine, while for others it can lead to addictions and destructive behaviors. If love is the ultimate and highest goal to which we can aspire, what happens to us if we just can't get our hands on it? Here's some things that people have been known to do or use as a substitute for love. Now, some of these examples may be temporary, while some are long-term. Some may be useful or harmless, whereas others may be harmful to you or to others, or both. Drugs. Some drugs mimic the sensation of love or falling in love. Loveless sex, pornography, masturbation, eating, physical exercise, gambling, psychological game playing, devotion to work, seeking power and control, making money, becoming politicized, becoming pregnant, having a baby, getting a pet, turning to a god, turning to religion or a cult, isolation, alcohol, medication, putting yourself at risk of harm, a lack of self-care, victimhood, self-loathing behavior, patriotism, avoidance of relationships, shutting down emotions, self-harm, suicide, hate, trolling, antisocial behavior, extreme behavior, aggressive behavior, destruction, threats, acts of terror, verbal abuse, angry outbursts, violence and torture, going to war, joining the armed forces, bigotry, human trafficking, using a cause as a cover for hatred, homophobia, misogyny, racism, coercive and abusive relationships, rape, and murder. If you're aware of having substitutes for love, would it be useful to take the time to address and reevaluate them? The 9th of April, games people play. The definition of games are episodes or situations whereby one or more persons have a set of tricks or hidden motivations that they use for their own purposes. The payoff for playing these games can be obvious, but it is sometimes hard to spot. If you spot a psychological game being played that is either initiated by others or by yourself, then congratulations for noticing, as most people have no awareness of them whatsoever. Now you have the choice as to whether you participate in the game or whether you undertake a new role that changes the dynamics of the game altogether. As we get older and accumulate more life experience, the games become more complicated. So here's an example of a game, and this one's called the Drama Triangle. This is a classic conflict game which involves power struggles and 3 well-defined and interchangeable roles: the rescuer, the victim, and the persecutor. Craig was driving his car along a road when he saw a man screaming and shouting at a woman. Without a second thought, he pulled the car over and went to help. As far as he was concerned, he was the rescuer, the woman was the victim, and the man was the persecutor. Yet, as Craig approached the scene, demanding that the man stop harassing the woman, the roles quickly changed. For both the man and the woman stopped what they were doing and started to become hostile towards Craig. After a while, Craig gave up trying to be the rescuer and returned to his car feeling like a victim, being attacked by 2 persecutors. Meanwhile, judging by the reaction of the man and the woman, they saw themselves as victims to Craig's persecutor. Which games are you aware of playing? Can you put a name to a game? Can you identify your role in these games as well as other people's? Can you say what's going on in the game? And can you guess at the payoff for having played the game? For more information on games people play, check out Eric Berne's book of the same title. 10th of April, boundaries. Boundaries, a way of defining a line between one thing and another. For example, what behavior is acceptable and what is unacceptable. Ruptures in relationships can blow a person's boundaries sky high. What once was a clear demarcation between you and me, between right and wrong, between okay and not okay, is now in question. For some people, the response to damaging relationships is to build up boundaries that are more solid and protective than ever, so that nothing can harm them again. Other people may give up on the notion of boundary, including their own values and beliefs. Some people will not know where to start to patch up their boundaries, as their own personal space has now been violated so much and so often, they may wonder if they had ever had their own autonomy and sovereignty in the first place. Areas that may be useful to focus on in our everyday life, if you are aware that boundaries are a problem for you, either through being too rigid and restrictive or too loose and formless, could include explorations of how to say no to others and actually mean it. Recognize the way in which others attempt to manipulate or coerce you. Learn how to make decisions based on your own needs rather than the needs of others. Exercise more self-control. Step away from a policy of appeasement if it clearly isn't working. Experiment with ways of being less passive and more proactive. Explore ways of sharing power rather than handing it over to someone else. following through on what you say, taking responsibility for your own actions. 11th of April, loneliness. The term loneliness encompasses everything to do with a lack or loss of companionship and friendship, which at the same time recognizes that some people can experience loneliness in a relationship or being within a group of people. Loneliness is a state of being associated with isolation, depression, and sadness. It's something that happens the world over, and yet so little is spoken of it. Perhaps it's a culturally taboo subject. And if that's the case, let us not suffer in silence because of a reserved, tight-sphinctered society. Let us unashamedly mingle in public spaces without any other aim than to immerse ourselves in company. Let us soak up a group or a class, engage in the activities or the creativity, and all the while soak up the precious jewels of human interaction. It's the relationship that heals. This is a quote from Irvin Yalom. There isn't much else we want to add to it. Instead, we'd like to let this statement swirl around your consciousness for a while. It's the relationship that heals. Let you knead it and play with it until you come up with your own interpretation of what he meant and how it might fit into your world and your own set of experiences and circumstances. The 12th of April, rupture and repair. When a relationship encounters a rupture, it doesn't need to spell an ending, far from it. Sometimes a rift in a connection, once recovered, can strengthen the relationship. Rawness in relationships can be repaired if there's enough goodwill from each party to be able to explore the problem in a non-judgmental space. Wobbles in trust, self-worth, empowerment, betrayal, grief and loss, hope and fear are all areas that may benefit from being addressed rather than ignored. Embracing the challenge can help to forge pathways towards restoration, resolution, reconciliation, forgiveness, and self-forgiveness. For more information on this theme, it might be worth checking out systemic therapy, which helps to unite larger units of people, such as families, as well as couples. This work helps make sense of the present and the past. It explores the main areas that are affecting everyone as a whole. The dynamics, the process, the games people play, the resentments, the cognitions, the emotions, the action. It helps individual members to empathize and sympathize with each other, to each get a voice and have that voice validated, to improve communication, and ultimately to build stronger bonds. The 13th of April, we're all leaking information. Everyone leaks information about themselves, whether they're aware of it or not. This is great news for a self-detective, as it gives us a chance to increase our knowledge about ourselves and those around them. As well as body language, bodily sensations hold clues as to what's going on for someone at any moment in time. Crying, blushing, numbness, increased heart rate, tension, change in tone of voice, change in breathing, many, many other sensations beside can all be useful to create a bigger picture of how we all tick. So what clues do you use to detect what's going on for you and those around you? The 14th of April, what are we really saying when we speak? What is talking all about? How much do you need to talk to others? Like, what happens if you don't talk? Does it matter what you're saying, or is it more important just to engage in communication? Like, do you need to talk as much as you do? Is there more to a conversation than merely talking? Like, are there more unspoken messages in a conversation than there are spoken? How important is it for you to understand what's really going on when you're talking with someone? Like, when you talk, are you aware of what it is that you want to get out of the conversation? If you strip down the content of what you're saying, what are you actually saying? Similarly, what is the other person truly wanting to say? Here's some examples of what might lie underneath a conversation. I need to be heard. I need to know that I am not alone. I need to know that I am alive. I need to know that you care about me. I need to know that I am not going mad. I want to show you that I care about you. I need to unburden the stuff that is in my head or in my heart. I need to be in control. I need to dominate you. I want something specific from you. I want something from you, but I just don't know what it is. I want you to like me. I want you to love me. I need to be the center of attention. I need reassurance. I need to impress you. Please be gentle with me. I need to protect myself. I want you to make me feel a certain way. I want to avoid silence. I want to avoid certain topics of conversation. I use my voice to keep you at a distance. The 15th of April. Parent, adult, child versus parent, adult, child. Now, on March the 9th, we looked at the idea of splitting ourselves up into 3 distinct camps: our parent self, our adult self, and our childhood self. Today, we will use the same model to explore how the different parts of us engage with the different parts of other people. For example, have you ever been made to feel like a child around some people, whereas perhaps with others, you can feel quite equal, an adult? Have you been in an intimate relationship where you ended up playing the role of mother or father to their childish ways? If you can spot what's happening in an unsatisfactory relationship, you can always step back and stay in the adult role in the hope that they will then join you there. Would it be a helpful exercise to go through all of your significant relationships and work out what the dynamics are being played out? The 16th of April, transference. Transference is the act of transferring your feelings and thoughts towards one person onto another. An illustration of this is to imagine that you're projecting, like a movie projector, the attributes of someone, whether they be good, bad, or a mixture, onto someone else who, as a result, is not being seen for who they really are. This can happen anywhere, at any time, where the characteristics of heroes, villains, angels, and devils can be attributed to a person without their having to do a single thing. Now, transference can rear its head in all sorts of ways. If you were mistreated by a person of a certain age, or a certain gender, or a certain race, say, you may come to resent everyone with those same characteristics. The opposite of this may also be true. If you were helped by someone, then everyone who is like them could also be immediately deemed helpful and trustworthy in your mind, in your eyes. Would it be a useful exercise to work out when you're likely to be doing this and with whom? Then, when you encounter such a person, you can try and see them for who they truly are and maybe save yourself from a messy relationship. The 17th of April. Energy vampires. Which people in your life sap your energy and steal away your time? Would it be useful to protect yourself and your own life force from such people and develop a radar that can spot energy vampires a mile away? The 18th of April. Spotting conversational narcissism. Conversational narcissism was a term coined by sociologist Charles Derber, who, concerned with power imbalances within American society, examined rampant individualism and egotism within casual relationships amongst friends and work colleagues. And he noticed two very different responses within the chatting. A support response happens when a person enables the conversation to continue to focus on the other person. For example, you say you're not feeling good. What is it that you're not feeling good about? A shift response happens when a person takes the conversation away from another person. For example, you say you're not feeling good. I'm not feeling good either, but I'm better than I was yesterday. Yesterday was really bad. ... Do you have any thoughts on this particular subject? The 19th of April, Sauron's gaze. If anyone has seen or read The Lord of the Rings, they'll know about the Eye of Sauron. Quote, "One moment only it stared out, but as from some great window immeasurably high, there stabbing northward a flame of red, the flicker of a piercing eye. And then the shadows were furled again, and the terrible vision was removed." End quote. Tolkien. The gaze of Sauron's eye is a terrifying concept. An eye that appears to be all-seeing, all-compassing, and as evil can be. Thankfully, this eye is purely fictional. Yet there are oppressive gazes embedded within our societies. We have a male gaze, the viewing of women from a creepy heterosexual perspective. We have a teacher gaze, a medical gaze, an institutional gaze, or from any role that is tainted by a power imbalance, loaded with judgment, disappointment, disapproval, and coupled with a bit of threat and menace. We also have the adult gaze, which looks down at children, seeing all that they are incapable of doing since it's so rigidly fixed in the adult world. And no doubt there are plenty of other gazes that are similarly hostile and adverse. The antidote to this is to not have a power gaze at all, but to have a look that's sensitive and responsive to each person it meets, one that can turn away if it becomes too intense, one that can be disarming, tentatively curious, forever respectful of the space between the two pairs of eyes. If you're unaware of what your eyes are doing when you're engaging with people, perhaps now is a good time to explore and reflect on this theme. The 20th of April, mental load. This is about the amount of information you're having to juggle inside your brain as part of your daily routine. Some people may only have responsibility for themselves and have relatively straightforward tasks and duties to remember and perform on a day-to-day basis. Other people have responsibilities for multiple persons, like babies, children, or elderly relatives, as well as a responsibility for running and maintaining a household. If you're the elected head of the house, there may be some unspoken expectations amongst all the other residents that you will, for example, know where everything is, know what timetables everyone has, know which clothes will need to be washed in time for which occasion, know, say, that the plumber will need to have a spare key because no one will be in the house on that day. You'll know all this information because you've taken on a collective mental load, while others may have forsaken their own responsibility. And since no one can see your mental load, no one else will know when it can get overwhelming until you have a nervous breakdown, or you get ill, or you start to get angry. One of the classic lines of dialogue in connection with mental load is, "You should have asked." As in, rather than get angry, you should have asked me to help. Or, why didn't you tell me you were struggling to cope? To which a response could be, since when did I become your line manager? Or, why should I need to ask you? How about we take equal responsibility? Are you taking on too much mental load? If you are, is there anything you can do about it? Alternatively, are you avoiding your share of the mental load in your relationship? And if so, can you make a change? The 21st of April, the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is a huge unresolved issue that hangs over a group of people unspoken, yet very much there in the silences and pauses and in the things that people say or do not say. It never goes away or diminishes in size unless it's eventually spoken about. The elephant in the room is very much about repression, a cover-up, a whitewash, an inability to discuss something difficult. It's often about a taboo subject, such as domestic abuse, mental and physical ill health, an addiction, sexual abuse, incest, death and loss, feuds, immorality, crime, abandonment, and infidelity. Quote, "Oh, please, let's talk about the elephant in the room. For if I cannot, then you are leaving me alone in a room with an elephant." End quote. Terry Kettering. Do you have an elephant in your room? Can you say what it is and what stops you from speaking of it? The 22nd of April, periodic table. We've been here before in another episode, so apologies for repeating myself, but in my defense, this is a pretty cool concept. Quote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." End quote. Carl Jung. A periodic table is an arrangement of chemical elements placed in different rows and columns depending on their similarities and differences. Some of these elements are solids, some liquids, some gases. Some are radioactive, flammable, volatile, capable of exploding at any moment. Some are dull, stable, inflammable, heavy. Some are colorless, odorless, while others are bright and pungent. Some bond together, some oxidize, some vaporize, some don't. Some are imitations of the real thing. Some are really hard, some are mushy, some are tough, and some are deadly. If you were to apply these elements to the characteristics of the people in your life, past and present, do any of these sound familiar? What might happen when you put these elements, these people together? Because some chemical reactions are incredibly beautiful and create something beautiful. And some are beautiful but produce something less appealing. Some reactions are scary, yet they produce something of wonder. Some reactions happen over a long period of time, while others are over in a flash. If magnesium and oxygen combine, there's a great bright light for a short time, and then nothing. Sodium acetate can remain a liquid despite cold temperatures. If it's poured out onto a surface, it will form ice crystals that are hot. When you set fire to lithium, it changes its shape to resemble coral. Magnets attract iron compounds, which will follow the magnet as long as it stays close to them. Do any of these ring a bell with you? April the 23rd, sense of belonging. What gives us a sense of belonging? Is it the people around us? The work we are doing? How, when, and where does a sense of belonging form? And how does it disappear? 24th of April, the 3-island exercise. You are invited to draw 3 islands. The first, biggest island will go on the middle of the page. This is your island. The second island is smaller than the first island and is joined to the first island by some kind of drawbridge that allows you to control the movement of people from the smaller island to to your island. The third island is smaller still and is far away from your island. It's called Shark Island and is surrounded by sharks. Once you have drawn these 3 islands, your task is to decide which people in your life are going on which island. Now, starting with yourself, you can either draw everyone as a stick person, or you can write down their name or their initials. You can share your own island with whoever you want. They could be living or dead. They could be cats or dogs. They could be anyone or anything. Now do the same for the second island, and please note that anyone who is placed on the smaller island can only come to your island when you say so, and they have to leave when you tell them it's time to go. Now, when it comes to Shark Island, whoever you put there is never going to leave that island, because if they tried, they would be eaten alive by the sharks. So whoever you put on this island will never, ever, ever be able to get to your island. If you complete this exercise, I wonder if you can take the time to reflect on what you've done. Like, what was it like doing it? Was it easy? Hard? Did it surprise you in some way? Did it make you think and feel about the people in your lives? If you haven't put many people on your island, is that okay? Or would you like to be able to welcome more people? If there are lots of people on your island, are you okay with that, or would you prefer to have more independence? And what of the people on the smaller island? What do they mean to you? Do you wish some of them could be closer to you? And then there's Shark Island. Did you put anyone on this island? And if you did, what was it like cutting them off from your world? The 25th of April, defining our own losses. To help us come to terms with our losses, would it be helpful to map out our own landscapes? It could be through words or by some other means of expression, such as drawing or singing. Here are some definitions that other people have come up with, but it would be more meaningful for you to come up with your own understanding of what you're going through. Bereavement, a period of mourning after a death. Mourning, the expression of sorrow for someone's death. Grief, intense sorrow, especially caused by someone's death. This can include terminations, miscarriages, and stillborn babies. Sorrow, a feeling of deep distress caused by loss or misfortune. Midlife orphan, a recognition of the distress caused by losing both parents and becoming orphaned at a relatively early age, as well as a realization of one's own mortality. Anticipatory grief. This refers to a grief reaction that occurs before an impending loss. Typically, the impending loss is the death of someone close due to illness, but it can also be experienced by dying individuals themselves. Unresolved or complicated grief can be used to describe grief that does not go away or interferes with the person's ability to take care of daily responsibilities. This may be due to the traumatic nature of the grief, for example, suicide or murder. unfinished business, emotions and memories surrounding a death that we avoid or repress. The feelings are not fully processed at the time because they're too overwhelming, too traumatic. And since they're unresolved, they linger in the background of our hearts and minds. When they're not expressed, the sadness, grief, fear, anger, anxiety, mistrust or terror associated with the deceased or the event can be carried and ends up interfering with our present lives. Loss, the feeling of grief after losing someone or something of value. Estrangement, the fact of no longer being on friendly terms or part of a social group, for example, a family breakdown. The 26th of April, the wound that opens, closes, opens, closes. In the old days, the task of grief was to let go and move on from the deceased. Now we see the benefits of continuing bonds with those who have died. Yes, death ends a life, but not the relationship. And this allows a person to be both absent and present at the same time. Grief was once viewed as a psychological happening, whereas now it has expanded to include all sorts of manifestations, including physical ones. Some people talk about the pain and hurt they experience with grief as though it were a raw, open wound, often described as lying lengthways across their chest. Sometimes that wound appears to be healing or close to healing, but then, whenever there's bad news or another bout of grief, loss or hurt, the wound opens up again. Only this time, the wound is not just a result of the latest upset, but of all the upsets combined all at the same time. And then the wound seems to heal over again until the next time. Are these ideas applicable to you in any way? The 27th of April, splendid isolation versus society. Imagine you end up washed ashore on an island with no other human inhabitants. You are in total, splendid isolation. To help you survive and thrive on this island, you are likely to need all of these things. Your capacity to think, your capacity to feel, your capacity to do things, your organismic self, like from your cells to your organs, to your nerves and your senses, your survival instinct. You will be marooned on this island for 10 years, after which time you will be rescued. Now, imagine you have ended up back in the same place you lived in before you took your ill-fated adventures across the seas. You are now surrounded by lots of inhabitants. To help you survive and thrive in this society, you're likely to need pretty much all of the things that you needed on the island, but it's quite likely you will also need or be aware of most of the things that I will now speak of. Morality, economics, law, duty, education, health services, obedience, war, social services, normality, conflict, armed forces, governance, opinions, values, identity, politics, beliefs, power, drugs, race, control, patriotism, racism, justice, intelligence, sex, consent, injustice, advertisement, sexism, punishment, the media, norms, family, work authorities, friends, crime, bigotry, money, police, relationships, parenting, recycling, inequality, popular culture, violence, religion, housing, voting, famine, alcohol, elections, truth, environment, sexuality, freedom, pollution, gender, prison. Ooh, what a minefield to have to navigate. And no doubt that's just the start of all the things you'd be expected to get your head around in the name of social conditioning. The definition of which is society training its citizens to act in a way that's generally considered to be agreeable and acceptable. So, you've been on an island for 10 years, and now you're back. How are you going to cope with all this stuff? Are you going to be able to relearn the teachings of your society? What if you can't be conditioned because you've become too wild, too much your own unique individual person? What do you think would happen next? Would you fail? Fall on hard times? Get arrested? Would you become isolated from your own kind? Would you wish you were back on the island again, even though you were so lonely there? This is a roundabout way of getting you thinking about the demands of your society and the demands your society places on you. Put another way, how much of yourself is governed by your society? 28th of April, relationship ingredients. Imagine you have two separate shelves in your kitchen. One shelf has ingredients that will make for a good relationship, while the other is full of bad stuff for bad relationships. As yet, none of these vessels have a label or a title to say what they are. Could you put a name to the ingredients that, in your opinion, would make for good and bad relationships? Here's some examples of such labels. Honesty, sharing, cooperation, similarities, companionship, compatibility, friendship, caring, trust, respect, shared interests, love. Now, these from the good relationships. Examples of bad relationship ingredients: emotional blackmail, domineering, controlling, unequal, hatred, possessive, jealous, blaming, shaming, intolerance, mistrust. 29th of April, relationship question time. How would you say you get on with other people in general? What type of people are the easiest to get on with? What type of people are the hardest to get on with? What aspect of a relationship gives you the most pleasure? What aspect of a relationship gives you the most pain? What do you fear most when forming a relationship? How do you know when a relationship is going well, and how do you know when it's going badly? Do you have obligations and duties to other people? How many people have you hurt in your lifetime? How many people have hurt you in your lifetime? Do you know what you need from each of your relationships? Do you know how to end a relationship if you have to? Do you have a useful question around relationships to ask yourself and then answer it? And finally, the 30th of April, endings. What are you like when things come to an end? Does it bother you, or is it no big deal? When an ending comes too abruptly, it can feel to some people quite overwhelming and can trigger past feelings of rejection and abandonment. Whereas with plenty of notice and thought, some endings can be a celebration of all that went before. Sometimes it's worth considering how we would like endings to be framed, either for ourselves or for those around us, as we can encounter quite a lot of them throughout our lives, with people forever moving on from jobs, areas, relationships, etc., etc. So how might you like to plan and prepare for your next ending? Okay. And pause. And breathe. And since we are ending this episode on the subject of endings, rather than just ending abruptly, can I say thank you for listening? Hope you got something out of this shared time together. And as always, we are all collectively going to fade out to the sound of the samphires. Bye for now.